4 on our Season 4 leaderboard here do battle against Mono Red. Azeem Suhaimi is the opponent here with Mono Red as we are underway with a Forest and an Elvish Mystic. Suhaimi does have a Mountain to start things off. We'll see if he has a Wild Slash to kill the Mystic, and he does. Going to slow down Morawski's ramping.
If you keep Green Devotion off of Mana Acceleration, they often only have Corsair Krufix as a 3-mana play. And so if you attack the mana, they can often be saying go for the first 3 turns of the game. Very important for a red deck.
Well, that is a Searing Blood, and he's definitely attacking the mana.
Now, it's still, for Suhaimi, it's still a bit of a concern that Morawski's on the play here, and if Morawski just makes land drops into things like Corsair Krufix and Pelucranos, he can still fall behind here, even with the good start that Suhaimi has had, fending off the 2 copies of Elvish Mystic.
Yeah, one thing we have seen with Green Devotion is they're capable of just playing a normal game of Magic.
Yeah, the deck has 24 lands in it, so it's not easy for this deck to go up to 5 mana without the assistance of mana creatures, but it's also not impossible.
Sylvan Carry added here from Morawski. We'll head back Suhaimi's way. Zurgo Bellstriker the draw.
You can see why it's important for Mono Red to be burn-oriented in this kind of matchup. Even with the draw that Suhaimi's had, it feels like it's going to be tough for him to get much going on the ground, assuming Morawski has any sort of follow-up here.
Zurgo Bellstriker, Lightning Berserker in hand here for Suhaimi. Going to play a Zurgo. The follow-up is Berserker. Going to get some threats onto the table now. I'll pass the turn back.
And under normal circumstances, I would not like this line of play from Suhaimi. I would have preferred just playing Lightning Berserker, dashing it, and getting in some damage, because I feel like he has to burn out from here. Why I do like this play is that Suhaimi has his main deck copy of Goblin Heel Cutter in hand. So if Morawski on this turn plays something like Corsair Krufix, Pelucranos, or what have you, he can untap and attack for a fair bit of damage.
Well, here is Corsair. Take a look at the top card. It is a Temple of Abandon. That'll enter the battlefield. 2 triggers, 1 from the Corsair, 1 from the Temple. Wooded Foothills is the top card. That'll go to the bottom from the Scry. Now the top card is a Dragon Lord, a Tarka. Morawski will also gain a life thanks to the Corsair. We're headed back Suhaimi's way. That's an additional copy of Zurgo in hand. You mentioned the Heel Cutter now Stoke the Flames in the grip. Another
important draw here for Suhaimi. And the issue for red decks in this matchup is Green Devotion's top end is so punishing to small creatures. Dragon Lord Tark is the most obvious example, but Whisperwood Elemental and Pelucranos are also very punishing on a sea of small creatures. So the more burn you can get your hands on, the better.
There is a Mountain. I was curious to see how exactly Suhaimi wants to use the Heel Cutter this turn, or does he want to use Stoke the Flames? Perhaps Stoke the Flames is just reserved for the Dome.
Yeah, I don't think that Suhaimi's going to really struggle, I think, to get much going managing Morawski's board. I like for hitting as much as possible, hoping that it takes Morawski a while to kill Suhaimi, and Suhaimi gets a lot of draw steps at burn spells.
He's going to get a healthy amount of damage in there. Heel Cutter is dashed. Corsair's not allowed to block. 5 damage comes through. Morawski will draw Dragon Lord Tarka. Top card of the deck is Elvish Mystic.
Well, he's got Morawski to 13. He's got a Stoke in his hand. He still has the Heel Cutter available, plus his other creatures. Things are not going great for Suhaimi, but you can imagine him drawing well from here, finding a lot of copies of Stoke and Exquisite Firecraft, and stealing this one.
That might be the recipe. Temple of Abandon. 2 triggers yet again. Mystic will go to the bottom. Top card here from Morawski is a Forest. That'll be his draw next turn. Unless he does have a card like Wishwood Elemental. He's got a Xenagos. That'll start at 3. See if he has interest in making a Satyr token or ramping up. Looks like he's just going to make a Satyr token.
The Forest is significant here as it locks up Morawski to have Dragon Lord Tarka available next turn.
Exquisite Firecraft the draw.
And that's the type of draw that Suhaimi needs from here going forward. And if I'm in his position, I'm not contesting the board here at all. I'm not killing the Corsair. I'm not attacking Xenagos. Try to get him in range and hope that your burn can finish him off. It's going to be hard because Dragon Lord Tarka kills pretty fast on the way back. It's a fast clock, but
it has no trouble closing out a game.
Morawski's got the mana for Dragon Lord Tarka locked up next turn, even if Suhaimi kills Corsair Krufix or Xenagos. So at that point, I think there's nothing to be gained by trying to interact with the board at all.
Well, we'll see what Suhaimi wants to play this turn. Stoke the Flames, Exquisite Firecraft, a backup Zergo, which isn't going to play a role in things, and then that Heel Cutter in hand. Exquisite Firecraft is going to go after Zergo.
And this is a type of play here that I'm not a fan of from Suhaimi. As I mentioned before, I feel like his plan's just got to be get in while the getting's good with his creatures and then hope that the burn is good enough to finish off Morawski. I think it's unlikely to be the case that that ends up working out for him, but I think that's a better plan than this because now Suhaimi's down the Exquisite Firecraft, his board's gone, and now Goblin Heel Cutter isn't even a productive way to get in any damage.
Not even a card anymore. Now, Morawski gets to go on the aggressive. He's only going to do it with a Satyr token. He'll play a little bit defensively here because he knows his opponent has a Heel Cutter, but then he can turn truly offensive next turn.
Yeah.
Searing Blood the draw. At least it does have a target there in the Satyr token. But again, this is part of the problem in which this Green Red Devotion deck, especially when it plays Dragonlord Autarky, can close the game out so fast.
Yeah, the old builds of Green Devotion pre-Dragonlord Autarka could take a very long time to assemble the kill, and so the burn plan was even more effective against them. Now they have some closing speed. Whisperwood Elemental is, even threats like that are a little bit on the slow side, but Dragonlord Autarka is extremely fast and not something that red deck can interact with at all. At least the threats on the ground you can chump block for a while, Pelukronos and Whisperwood and so forth, but Dragonlord Autarka is fast, unblockable, and essentially unkillable.
She's really good.
Yes.
It's actually probably a good thing that Dragonlord Autarka cannot deal damage to players. Here's a Genesis Hydra.
Well, it does get to deal damage to players. It gets to attack. It doesn't need the claws.
Sure.
It's good at dealing damage to players also, just not when it comes into play.
A Genesis Hydra for 6 will bring a Courser along with it. Morawski looking to close this game out here. In prime position to do so, that's for sure. And part of the reason I think that Morawski is off to such a great start this game, one, he was on the play with an Elvish Mystic, which certainly helps. But we saw Suhaimi start off with Burn Spell plus Burn Spell instead of Creature and then Burn Spell plus Burn Spell.
It's why being on the play is so important, and even if the mana creatures get killed, being on the play can still be an enormous advantage for Green Devotion. If Suhaimi's on the play, he gets to go turn 1 Zergo, and then he's curving into his removal spells, including Searing Blood. That's much more powerful than Suhaimi basically keeping at parity by using his removal spells.
Nykthos is going to join the battlefield, replacing the one currently, but that's for Courser triggers. Morawski at 14, not a ton to worry about. He's going to survey the board just to make sure he doesn't make any mistakes here, but I don't think it matters too much how he attacks because it's going to be over in 2 turns regardless.
Yeah.
He wants to make sure that there are no extra turns given, of course, but you'll have an attack here for 10. Suhaimi can't block with Zergo given its text, so Suhaimi will fall down to 8. We'll have to have the top card revealed from Courser, and then we'll head back Suhaimi's way. Oh, neat. What I always wanted to see, another Dragonlord Autarka.
The second one's honestly not that good. The first one does all the work.
Well, the second one isn't bad. It's perfectly fine. We won't need the second one this game. But
none of Morawski's spells are bad here.
that's very, very true.
They're all good.
Jonathan Morawski to win game number 1 here over Azeem Suhaimi. Green Red Devotion up a game there over Mono Red Aggro, and you really do see the difference between play and draw there in that particular game.
Yeah, Suhaimi's opening hand was excellent for the matchup. It looked like he had 1-mana creatures on top of Wild Slash and Searing Blood matched up with Morawski's Elvish Mystic. Can't ask for much more than that. Unfortunately, with Morawski on the play, he still got an opportunity to get to threats like Courser or Crewfix first before Suhaimi had a board, and the advantage and life gain from all that was too much to overcome.
To the sideboards, we are going to go. We will take a look here at Suhaimi's red sideboard with 2 Goblin Heel Cutters, 4 Roast, 2 Magma Spray, an Anger of the Gods, a Molten Vortex, 2 Scab Clan Berserker, an Outpost Siege, and then 2 Thunderbreak Region. I like that one the most.
So, very good sideboard here. The 2 Heel Cutters and the 4 Roasts are excellent for this matchup. Heel Cutter very good against blockers, especially Hornet Nest, which is occasionally in Green Devotion sideboards. 4 Roast kills a lot of different threats like Pelucranos and Whisperwood Elementals. And Thunderbreak Region, I think, is a good way to top off the curve. Green Devotion is a little bit soft in the air, and if Suhaimi can get to that card on curve and disrupt Morawski's mana, that's a winning game plan.
What do we see on the other side here from Morawski?
2 copies of Rose, 3 Nylea's Disciple, 2 copies of Plummet, 2 Guy's Revenge, Anissa Worldwaker, an Evolutionary Leap, Azenago's the Reveler, 2 copies of Den Protector, and 1 copy of Ugin the Spirit Dragon. I think the 3 copies of Nylea's Disciple are Morawski's best card in the matchup. And I think the 2 copies of Rose, they're not great, but they're acceptable. Little removal to slow Suhaimi down, especially Morawski on the draw for game 2.
Well, these players will shuffle up for game number 2, and Suhaimi will be on the play with this mono red aggro deck, exactly where he does want to be, though. Does not want to be down a game. We'll see if he can tie things up. As these players get ready, we will talk about the Star City Games YouTube page, where you can watch the replay of this game, this entire match, and of course, this Open here in Worcester, and a whole bunch more.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes up on this page. There's the Versus City Series video, archives of premium articles, and the Open Series, and content that's exclusive to the YouTube page, such as unboxings. Head over to youtube.com/StarCityGames. Check out the page right now. Become a subscriber for free and get updated when new content is uploaded to the site.
Pretty simple stuff. youtube.com/StarCityGames. And as Patrick did mention the F word here this morning.
Free.
It's free. Pretty simple stuff.
Open Series events typically go up on the page a few days after the Open's over. So if you're joining us a little late, you missed some of the coverage day 1, you can hop on there in a few days, check out the entire Open Series event. And that's true of all the Opens, so you can go back and watch them all.
Jonathan Morawski, a New England player, number 4 on our Season 4 leaderboard right now. Looking to qualify for the Players' Championship, certainly in prime position to do so, in prime position to make top 8 of this tournament as well. He's got a loss to give at the very least here with 6 rounds today. He's already off to a great start in what feels to be a pretty good matchup for Green-Red Devotion, especially given his build of the deck. He's got some nice options in his sideboard, and you really got to like where he's positioned here early this morning.
There is a bit of a fail rate for Green Devotion in the matchup because they're light on lands relative to the cost of their threats, and they're banking on the mana creatures to make up that deficit. And of the mana creatures, the 12 in the deck, 8 of them are very easy for red to kill, the Rattleclaw Mystics and the Elvish Mystics. So sometimes you just get these games where Green Devotion draws up 2 lands and 2 mana creatures, an acceptable hand in a variety of matchups. The first 2 mana creatures get killed, and the red deck is capable of killing on, let's say, the 5th turn before the Green Devotion deck gets online. That'll happen a percentage of games, but if Green Devotion gets its mana and gets to its plays, it's very hard for mono red aggro to win the matchup. A cheat that you sometimes see in these decks for this matchup out of mono red is Harnessed by Force. That's a good way of stealing games against Green Devotion because Dragon Lord Atarka is an especially juicy target for that card. It has Flying, it has Trample, and the Green Devotion deck barely plays any flyers. Maybe there's a Hornet Queen hanging out there. So that's a card that can win games against Dragon Lord Atarka. But besides that, there really aren't that many superstar cards that red can have in the sideboard. The roasts are fine, but they're not spectacular. Heel Cutters are fine, but
again, not spectacular.
Right. You get a bunch of good cards, but you have nothing great unless you're willing to go to Harnessed by Force, and even then you need them to cast specifically Dragon Lord Atarka for that card to be worth very much.
Ooh, no 1-drop to start here for Suhaimi. Hopefully he's got a Wild Slash for this Elvish Mystic at the very least. Wow.
I believe he has Searing Blood.
That's not bad, but again, we saw this recipe not work out previously. Now, he is on the play this game, so there's a little bit of difference there. But I think it's just very important that you start off with a 1-drop or just some sort of creature to get the ball rolling. There's a Sylvan Carry added. Abbot of Carroll, keep the draw. Looks like Abbot will come down. We'll see what the top card is here. It's a mountain. We'll use that one. Abbot, a card that's starting to pick up in popularity across multiple formats right now.
Patrick Chapin getting some work done in OKC this weekend, I've heard. Very powerful alongside Rancor.
The 1-2 punch.
Vapor Snag.
Wooded Foothills will search up a mountain.
Seal of Fire.
No, not that.
Mistress Bobble. Chapin found them all.
Yeah, he sure did. There's a Crater's Claws. That'll be for 2 to take care of the Abbott.
Solid play here by Morawski. Wants to leave up the carry added to block a potential haste threat, but doesn't want the Abbott to survive in the event that Suhaimi has some sort of wild slash effect. So doing it for 2 just to be safe.
Here's another Abbott, Eidolon. Now the Eidolon will join the battlefield.
Okay. Suhaimi getting the ball rolling here a little bit.
Yep.
He's got some removal for the top end, too. He's got a roast, so he can handle something like Pelucranos, should Morawski have it.
Also has a Stoke the Flames in hand. There's a force from Morawski.
Been a little slow out of the gates, but it looks like Morawski's hand is a bit land heavy. Doesn't have a trump like Dragon Lord Atarka. Suhaimi in much better shape thus far. And a lot of this is just the function of being on the play as opposed to the draw.
And there's a big difference there, to be sure.
When I was playing red decks, this felt like the matchup where the difference was the most pronounced of any matchup in Standard.
Whisperwood Elemental is going to join the battlefield to bring a manifest along with it.
And Suhaimi has a great turn here lined up with, I believe, Searing Blood and Roast at the ready.
It's a good way to clear that stuff out of the way and get to attack. We'll have to take some damage to do so.
Well worth it. He also gets a bunch of prowess triggers for his trouble.
Very true. Searing Blood going to go after the token, excuse me, after the manifest creature, which was a Den Protector. So it was actually a relevant one.
So Morawski has brought in the 2 Den Protectors out of the board. I don't think they're that good in the matchup, but if Morawski just wants something that he can put on the battlefield early and trade, they're acceptable.
So some prowess triggers, some Eidolon triggers, but most importantly here for Suhaimi, he's gotten some creatures dead. Now he gets to attack for a pretty healthy amount.
Yeah, this is 6 coming across.
Morawski going to fall down to 7.
And for a deck as burn dense as Suhaimi's, this is burnout range. He's gotten Morawski where he wants him here.
He's got Morawski down to basically 1, right? Because he's got Stoke the Flames and Wild Slash in hand.
Yep.
So this is a pretty good spot to be in. Morawski, I believe, with a Pelucranos in hand, also a copy of Genesis Hydra. He'll go with Pelucranos, pass the turn back. Suhaimi may have another copy of Roast in the grip. See what he draws now in Mountain. He'll play the land. There is Roast to take care of Pelucranos. That'll trigger Abbott and Eidolon. Suhaimi will fall down to 14. Abbott will become a 3-2. And we'll see what's next here for Azeem, who's in pretty good position right now.
Yeah, what he can do here, I like this attack. The option that he had there was basically only attack with Abbott and leave up Stoke. If Morawski says no blocks, then he gets to Stoke him out. But I think that plays a little too greedy because Morawski will likely chump block in that scenario. So doing this, I just prefer this play.
Yep, Wild Slash will go upstairs. Morawski's going to fall down to 1, so cheap spells are off the table here for John.
Morawski is locked out of playing anything cheap, and on top of that, with the Stoke in hand, Suhaimi doesn't even have to care about Nylea's Disciple because that only puts Morawski up to 4, and the Stoke covers it. So I like that card more than the greedier play of sending only the Abbott in.
Morawski, I'm not sure he's got a way out of this.
He does. He does have a way out. He has Genesis Hydra in hand. Oh, I suppose, no, he cannot Genesis Hydra into Nylea's Disciple.
Correct.
He does not get the extra devotion triggers. So, no, without a bunch of green mana symbols showing up somehow, along with Nylea's Disciple, Morawski is beat. He doesn't know that. He doesn't know about the Stoke. But
of course.
We know that we're going to game 3 here in a moment.
Here's Whisperwood Elemental. Morawski will cast that. Trigger the Manifest. Suhaimi will want to tap very quickly, and I would too, with a lethal Stoke the Flames in hand. He's going upstairs, and that's going to take care of it. So Azeem Suhaimi is going to win game number 2 here against Jonathan Morawski. Mono Red Aggro, Green Red Devotion, getting ready for a 3rd game here. Again, the difference between being on the play and on the draw.
Even with Suhaimi not having a 1-mana play, it was still a huge deal for him. He was able to leverage his Abbotts a lot better. The Abbott hitting the Eidolon there was especially good. Even though Morawski never triggered the Eidolon, still important for Suhaimi just to be mana efficient and get a lot of threats into play. And he was equipped with a lot of burn spells, several copies of Searing Blood, Stoke the Flames. A good recipe to have against Green Devotion, even with Suhaimi not having something like Zurgo Bellstriker on the first turn.
Well, these players will shuffle up here for game number 3. Morawski will be on the play, and you see the 4 next to his name as he is number 4 on our Season 4 leaderboard. Part of the reason for that is the Star City Games Invitational Qualifiers circuit. He's been doing a great job at this in the New England area, and you can definitely get your stores to run these as well.
There's multiple tiers of IQs, and there's all sorts of incentives to have these at your store. If you're just looking for some more cash tournaments, some more organized play, the IQs provide that. If you're looking to qualify for the Invitational, they're there for that too. And for a lot of our players, like Jonathan Morawski, they are a path along with the Open Series events and Invitationals to get to the Players' Championship. They come with a variety of exclusive prizes, including playmats, top 8 pins, Invitational winner tokens, and SCG premium vouchers.
StarCityGames.com/IQ for more information on that. As game number 3 about to be underway here early this morning. From Worcester, round number 10, Cedric Phillips and Patrick Sullivan bringing you all the action at SCG Live, hashtag SCGWOR. For your tweets all weekend long, we're going to be talking about Battle for Zendikar all day today, just like we did yesterday, looking for your questions or any cards that you'd like us to talk about. We talked about Converge's Mechanic, the Eldrazi, Devoid, Ingest, Allies, the enemy creature lands, the new battle lands, all the Planeswalkers we've seen so far. A lot going on in this new set for Magic.
Another big swing card in the matchup, and another card that shows how much play draw matters, is Eidolon of the Great Rebel. On the play, extremely good against Green Devotion. If they're casting their mana creatures and you're breaking them up, that could be a winning line of play on its own. On the draw, it's less likely that Green Devotion triggers it. The body's not worth very much, and sometimes the game becomes a damage race where you are triggering your Eidolon far more than the Green Devotion player is.
Both these players will take a look at their opening hands. We'll be underway here for game number 3 in just a moment. Looks like they are not both happy. Suhaimi's going to take a mulligan.
Important for the red player to be aggressive with the mulligans in this matchup. I know you don't like mulliganing when you're playing red decks because, you know, your cards are already pretty low in power, so it's hard to feel like you can mulligan into powerful enough 6-card hands. But this is a matchup where the player who loses regularly loses with spells left in their hand because the game is so fast, and both players have ways to just push the other out of the game, either with Green Devotion ramping into something too large for the red deck, or the red deck breaking up mana creatures and then burning the Green Devotion player out. So it's important for both players to aggressively mulligan for good hands in the matchup, not just keep whatever 7.
Well, we'll see if Suhaimi can find a better 6. Keep in mind, again, both of these games so far, he has not started off with a 1-drop.
Well, game 1 he kind of did.
Sure, he did have a Zergo.
He could have played Zergo if he wanted to, correctly wild slash the Elvish Mystic instead. But you are right, game 2 he just said go, but he had a Searing Blood for an Elvish Mystic and an Abbot that found a land, and then an Abbot into an Eidolon, so he still had a pretty good start, even though it didn't have a 1-mana creature involved.
He's going to keep it. No Elvish Mystic from Morawski, just a Forest. We're underway here in game number 3. Stoke the Flames, the first draw here for Suhaimi. Is there a 1-drop? It looks like there is. It's Monastery Swiftspear in for 1.
And it looks like Suhaimi's mulligan has a good mixture of lands and spells in it. Fine 6-card hand.
That's all you can ask for. Does Morawski have a 2-mana spell is the question. Does he have a way to accelerate? Carry added to the best of the bunch, of course.
By a lot. I think Rattleclaw Mystic is one of the first cards to get boarded out frequently in this matchup because it's 2 mana and vulnerable to removal, but Morawski has it.
Roast the draw. Suhaimi has the second land. Doesn't appear as though he has a Searing Blood. So he'll come across here with Swiftspear. And that'll work just fine. Morawski will take 1, fall down to 18. Eidolon looks to be the follow-up. This isn't a bad start for Suhaimi, especially on a mulligan.
And I like this play from Suhaimi. He could have killed the Rattleclaw Mystic via Roast, but anything that Rattleclaw Mystic accelerates into, Roast can handle. Pellucra Nose, Corsair Crewfix, what have you. Also, you just sort of have to get Eidolon out there as soon as possible because it gets worse and worse being in your hand the later and later the game goes. On top of that, Suhaimi has a Stoke the Flames in hand, so he has an incentive to just get creatures onto the battlefield as soon as he can for Convoke implications down the road. So even though a lot of people's instinct in that spot is just kill the mana creature and hope that maybe Morawski doesn't have to land and can't play, Roast will catch him up no matter what Morawski plays, and it's important just to get Eidolon on the table as soon as you can.
Might be time for a Xenagos, perhaps. It is. That'll bring a Satyr token along with it from Morawski.
Legacy players, please find your seats.
And we'll head back Suhaimi's way. Now, no third land in hand just yet. Lightning Strike the draw. Not a bad one. I suppose the question is, what do you Lightning Strike?
Well, I'm trying to see what his best distribution is on the attacks. A land that turn would have been great because he could have played Heel Cutter, made the Satyr token unable to attack, block, Heel Cutter at Xenagos, and attack for 3.
Yep.
Really solid line of play here. Now it's a little bit tougher. I mean, I think you have to kill Xenagos regardless. I don't think you can trade Eidolon with a Satyr token here.
Maybe just strike that Satyr token, get your prowess trigger finish off Xenagos. It's not the sexiest turn in the world, but I think it's a turn that's effective.
Yeah, this is, unfortunately for Suhaimi, he just doesn't have a clean distribution on how to use his resources this turn. If he uses the Lightning Strike to just take care of Xenagos, then there's still the Satyr token in play facing down his Eidolon. That resource exchange is not great. So this is the best way for him to generate parity with the Xenagos, but it is painful that it's his whole turn and 4 points of combat damage instead of 3.
Looks like a Courser on the way. Take a look at the top card, though there will be a trigger for Minor. Pelucranos on top of the deck. Wooded Foothills. That'll also trigger the Courser. Morawski up to 17.
We have a sales booth at the front of the room. They're happy to buy cards from you and sell the cards to you. We also have.
And they'll just pass the turn back. Suhaimi will untap. Let's see if he can find land number 3. Would have been useful last turn. Looks like an Abbot, which is a redraw into it. But I don't know if that's what he wants to do this turn.
Unfortunately, I think Morawski just needs to kill the Courser crew fix.
Yeah, Suhaimi will take care of Morawski's Courser. There will be an Eidolon trigger.
It's painful, you know, you'd love to get Abbott out there, try to find your third land, get another threat on the table, but Courser blocks too effectively and gains life. Suhaimi can't play against that card right now, so he's just got to kill it.
Yeah, see, you'd love to be able to save that risk for the Pelucranos that's on top of the deck, too.
Honestly, especially with Heel Cutters in Suhaimi's hand, the Courser is more threatening. Suhaimi can work around here. Now, this is a play that I'm not thrilled with Suhaimi. I'm happy trading the Eidolon here for Rattleclaw Mystic. Mana is very important for Morawski, and it's possible at this stage of the game, Morawski's just going to be playing 4 and 5 mana cards for the rest of the game. So if Morawski was willing to trade the Rattleclaw Mystic for an Eidolon, I would consider that to be a win on Suhaimi's side. 2 reasons for Suhaimi not to not attack there. One is he's hoping Morawski will trigger the Eidolon. The other is, with Stoke the Flames in hand, if Suhaimi thinks it's close, that he's better served keeping a creature in play to make Convoking more efficient down the line. I think I would have offered up an attack in that spot, though. I would have been happy trading off the Eidolon with Rattleclaw Mystic.
Is it time for Pelucranos? Yes, it is. Suhaimi will draw a mountain, finally. Now we'll see what the plan is.
I like the simple, straightforward play of heel cuttering the Pelucranos and attacking with everyone.
If Rattleclaw Mystic trades with something, that's fine.
Yep, most likely Eidolon, but in that world you get 4 points of damage across, get Morawski down to 10. If Morawski wants to spend his turn shooting down things, that's okay with the Pelucranos. Not the most efficient use of his turn.
Here's heel cutter. Everybody's coming in, no blocks there. So we'll see what Rattleclaw Mystic wants to do as far as blocking is concerned, because I feel like Rattleclaw Mystic is blocking something.
And what's nice here is Suhaimi has the second heel cutter in his hand, which is often awkward to try to do anything with because it's just so much mana to dash the second one. There's a very good chance here that Morawski blocks the heel cutter, and that's very good for Suhaimi as it gives him something to do with the second copy in his hand.
Looks like Mystic will get in front of the Eidolon. They'll trade. 4 damage will come across. Morawski will fall down to 10. Heel cutter will come back to the grip, of course, because it was dashed. Swift Spear will be left on the battlefield, and that'll be Suhaimi's turn. So we head back Morawski's way. He's got an active Pelucranos, 4 lands on the battlefield, taking a draw step. Picked up a Whisperwood Elemental.
Please raise your hand or otherwise make yourselves known. Otherwise, we'll talk about the John Ashworth.
And if Morawski made that trade last turn, getting rid of the Eidolon in lieu of getting rid of the heel cutter, I had to imagine his hand's got some mana creatures in it.
Yeah, there's at least one Elvish Mystic over there. We know there's a Dent Protector in his hand as well. So Eidolon was doing some good work at just kind of gumming up Morawski's hand. Didn't want to take the damage from those cards.
We got a good game, though. This one's going to be close.
Yep.
Is Tony D'Souza here?
Both players with some huge draws. You know, any of the big burn spells for Suhaimi are going to be a big deal here. Stoke the Flames and Exquisite Firecraft for Morawski. Certainly finding Nylea's Disciple would be a huge swing in this spot. Not sure Suhaimi can come back from that.
There's a Morph. That's a Dent Protector.
No, actually, I think that was Rattleclaw Mystic that got put face down.
Okay. Now there's Elvish Mystic. So perhaps looking for a surge in mana here is Morawski. Maybe we'll continue to see Pelucranos back on defense. Don't know if he can shift towards attacking just yet.
Making an attack here is pretty risky. The other side is you would like to close out this game as soon as possible. Morawski doesn't have any of his locks in his hand, so he may want to get on the aggressive just to try to end this game as soon as possible. But it's not without risk, especially knowing about a heel cutter in hand. If Suhaimi has a land and a Wild Slash, all of a sudden you're taking 5 and going to 5.
Abbott's the draw.
And now I think that Suhaimi needs to be playing an Abbott this turn because heel cutter just doesn't get him very far.
It seems like Abbott hitting a land is a pretty good spot to be in.
Very good spot. Hitting a Wild Slash would also be great. Hitting a 1-mana creature would be great. There's a lot of good reveals for here for Suhaimi. And most of his bad reveals, quite honestly, are cards that he does not want to draw next turn.
Sure.
It's really only Lightning Strike and I guess Searing Blood that are the painful reveals.
It is difficult to put a bunch of creatures on the battlefield right now, however, because he is just staring down a Pelucranos that has a healthy amount of mana to be able to activate Monstrosity with.
Well, I agree. It's not where you want to be. But the issues are, look at the other cards in his hand. If he plays heel cutter and attacks with everything, then that doesn't get him very far.
He's going to stoke the flames with the Morph. Wow.
And this is the same line of play that we saw Suhaimi take in the first game when he used an Exquisite Firecraft, I believe, on a Courser, where I understand on the surface, well, it could be really bad if there's a Dent Protector down there, and if it's Rattleclaw, who knows what happens next turn. But if you look over the implications of the next couple of turns and think about how Suhaimi is most likely to win this game, I don't think you can make that play.
Here comes Whisperwood Elemental, and now things have kind of spiraled out of control just that quickly.
I think that you basically have to fend off Morawski for as long as possible, try to get in whatever shots you can with your creatures, and drag out the game long enough to draw 10 points of burn.
There's Abbott. Trigger, another Abbott. I guess we cast that one too. From that comes a Searing Blood. Can't play it, of course. No mana left over. Now this is where kind of Pelucranos finishes things off, I think.
Yeah, this is part of the issue here is that Green Devotion turns the corner pretty fast in this matchup.
Yep.
Because Pelucranos and Dragonlord Atarka are both capable of very easily wiping away all the chump blockers and then attacking for a sizable amount of damage themselves.
Monstrosity will be activated. Abbots will bite the dust. Swift Spear is left over.
Now Suhaimi has a chump block, the
Yep.
Pelucranos, and there's no way that 10 points of damage is coming across next turn. It's a lot.
Yes, it is. There's your block. Suhaimi will fall down to 5. There's a manifest from Whisper Elemental. But unfortunately here for Suhaimi, after a pretty good start this game, just not going to be able to close it out. Got pulled in a couple different directions. Pretty good fight for a mulligan.
But you see, you know, you have that Stoke. You have a lightning strike that Suhaimi just drew. You see the Searing Blood that got revealed to Abbott that he wasn't able to cast because he was tapped out. The cards were there in some mixture in the top 4 or 5 cards of his deck to come up with 10 points of damage. And now he's dying with a lot of creatures in his hand.
Red can be very unforgiving. You know, you make one misstep like that, and there's no coming back from it because the power level of the cards aren't terribly high.
The problem, you know, you had to have a degree of acknowledgement about how bad your cards are against your opponent sometimes to be able to play the deck effectively. Suhaimi's creatures, once you get past the first couple turns of the game, are worth very little in this matchup. And even though it's unlikely you're going to be able to burn him out, you got to draw pretty well and have him not kill you. That's a better chance than trying to play a fair game with him, use your burn spells like removal spells, and try to play on. The Green Devotion deck's just too powerful.
Jonathan Morawski going to win this match here over Azeem Suhaimi, 2-1. Green-Red Devotion showing its power, flexing its muscles, takes care of mono-red aggro. From Morawski, he moves on to 8-2. He's looking to solidify his berth to the Players' Championship. And another win gets him one step closer to doing that.